what's great about what Hypernomics does is it's just characterizing behaviors that you already know, but it's actually quantifying that characterization. So when you're talking about micro influencers from say 1,000 to 50,000, well, you could plot all the people you have in the 50,000 range. So you have 50, you maybe have 10 people at 50, 20 at 40, 30 at 30, and so on. And you get down to the people that are in the thousands, so maybe you have 1,000 people at 1,000. You could work out how much you're paying to these people relative to what you're getting, and then this could help you position yourself into the sweetest spot of the market.
Welcome to the Ecommerce Marketing Podcast, the highly rated digital marketing podcast that provides weekly digital marketing tips and strategies from some of the world's top digital marketers and e-commerce entrepreneurs that will help you take your digital marketing to the next level. Sit back and enjoy this power-packed episode hosted by Arlen Robinson, who is an e-commerce entrepreneur and digital marketing expert with over 20 years of experience. Hey, e-commerce marketing podcast listener. Are you looking to increase traffic and sales to your website? You can do this by launching your own affiliate program. Just visit getosi.com and sign up for a free trial today. That's getosi.com. Now get ready to hear from your e-commerce marketing expert of the week as they drill down to give you details on marketing strategies that can help grow your business.
Welcome back to the E-commerce Marketing Podcast, everyone. My name is Arlen, and I am your host. Today, we've got a very special guest, Doug Howarth, who is the founder of Hypernomics Incorporated and a pioneer in multidimensional market analysis. He was inspired to look beyond traditional models, and Doug developed Hypernomics, an approach that's drawn the interests of NASA, Lockheed Martin, and many other big name companies that he'll also today be sharing his insights from his book that he wrote, Hypernomics, which is using hidden dimensions to solve unseen problems and reveal how understanding market behavior across multiple dimensions can transform e-commerce. Welcome to the podcast,
Arlen. Thank you so much for having me. You've had a long list of really important guests, so I feel honored to be part of it. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. And thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, it's definitely been a journey, and I've had a ton of great guests, and that's why I'm super excited to talk to you as well.
Sure.
I'm going to be adding you to the list of notable guests as well, for
I
sure.
hope to live up to that.
Because,
so,
yeah. All right. Well, I think you will. But as I mentioned in the intro, today we're going to be talking about unlocking hidden market dimensions and the power of hypernomics in e-commerce specifically. So, but before we do dive into that, why don't you tell us a little bit about specifically what that is? What is Hypernomics? And how did you really come up with this, and how it is related to the observing market? Dimensions?
Hypernomics means existing in more. One of the definitions is existing in more than three dimensions. And then nomics comes from nonomy, meaning a field of study like agronomy. And so Hypernomics is a field of study that deals in four or more dimensions. And the way I came to this is that I kept seeing all these big, important programs and new product launches bombing all the time. And I wondered why that was. Right. And I noticed that, you've heard of law of supply and demand, where there's this intersection of the value, the supply of something versus the demand of something at an equilibrium point.
Right.
And that works for gold. I could solve for gold or iron and come up with a solution for something like that. But iron goes into things like cars and planes, and there's hundreds of car models and dozens of aircraft models. And so what I figured out was, and this is kind of intuitive, but you didn't know this specifically. Well, you knew it intuitively, but you know that, like, if you're buying a plane, you get these little small planes that hold four people, maybe a personal plane, and it goes 100 miles an hour. So you're buying for how many people you've got and how fast it goes. And then you get airliners that can carry 100 people. Maybe they got a prop on it, they go 400 miles an hour. They're not as expensive as something that can carry 300 people and go 600 miles an hour. Well, it turns out that you can plot both of those things at the same time, the speed and the capacity, against the price. And so that forms a three-dimensional market model. And you kind of already knew that intuitively, so that the value of a plane goes up with the capacity, how many people it carry, and its speed. So you knew that.
Sure.
At the same time, you know that these big Airbus A380s, the biggest plane in the world, they've only sold 120 of those things. And meanwhile, there's these little small Cessna 172s that you see people with airports. Well, they sold 20,000 of those things. And so that's a relationship of the price to the quantity. And it turns out that that's something else that you can plot. And you notice what happens here is that the price is positive. The speed was positive. I mean, you should say it goes from 0 to a positive number. Speed goes from a positive number, 0 to a positive number. Capacity does the same thing. So does price. And then you've got this quantity dimension going out in the other direction. And what happens is they all co-locate on the price axis. And so it just came to me in an instant that there's this new coordinate system out there where everything just collapses to a price axis. Now, how is that important for e-commerce? Well, in e-commerce, you're going to be selling a certain number of, say, solutions to some problem that somebody has. And you might have a deluxe version that sells for maybe $5 a client per month. And you've got the medium thing that might sell for $3 per month. And then you've got the most inexpensive one that's $1 a month, say. And what you could do is you could plot how many sales that you have of your product, and you would start to see that it probably forms this downward slope. And then you would notice that what your costs are. And what you can figure out is, does it make more sense for you to try to push the more expensive products because you're getting the margin there because the demand is pretty steep, or does it make more sense to push the cheaper products? And so one of the reasons for studying this is that you have to figure out where your limits are in order to be able to figure out if you can make something profitably. And that's kind of what we're trying to drive to.
Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting, because I know that's a dilemma many businesses have, many e-commerce businesses have. Like you said, when you're looking at the price and the value of the different products, of course they're going to have higher price products versus smaller price products. But yeah, that is often a dilemma there. They could be selling a considerable amount of some of the smaller items, the lower cost items, not as many of the higher ones. But it's like you said, how else are you going to be able to determine which one that you should actually push? That's going to give you really going to give you the best revenues at the end of the day.
And then at the same time, while you're figuring out how many you can sell, I mean, how much more work does it take to go from your cheapest product to your most expensive product? So what happens a lot of times is that people can get the most expensive product out, and the cheaper ones don't only take a fraction of the effort. So maybe you make something that you really concentrate on, something that takes a fraction of the effort, because as you go up, it may be the case that you're adding more cost than you're going to get revenue. And that's something that you don't want to do. So to take it to a big case here that some of you may have seen, the biggest airplane in the world is called the Airbus. The biggest commercial plane in the world is called the Airbus A380.
Right.
And Airbus, this thing carries, if you wanted to cram 680 people in it, you could do that. Airbus predicted they were going to sell 250 of these guys, and the price was somewhere around $400 million.
Wow.
Now, the problem they had was that Boeing was making something pretty big. A lot of you heard of the 747. And so Boeing, in 20 years before the Airbus launch, Boeing had sold 800 747s. And then here comes Airbus. They're going to make something 50% bigger, and they want to sell 50% more. Well, it turns out that there's a limit to this market here that they didn't bother to examine. And it's very hard to sell 50% more of something that's 50% bigger. And what happens is they didn't do that. They sold, instead of selling the 800 that Boeing did over 20 years, or the 250 that they wanted to sell, they sold 120 because they didn't understand that this curve could be pulled out of the data, and they could actually figure out what's going on in it, and then work it out. And so this thing, as complicated as that is, then you've got some other situations that are simpler. So for example, here in California during COVID, and we had all these really strict restrictions on what we could do. And so COVID hit, as you remember, in the spring of 2020.
Yep.
Even out here in Southern California, it gets kind of cold. And so you'd eat outside on patios, and there'd be heated patios. And so we had our favorite joint down the street. And, we used to go there every Friday night. You could almost always get in before COVID. And then COVID hit. And so they went from having a capacity of way over 100 to about 30 or 40 out on this patio. So I saw this big long line of people going out the door, and I knew the manager, and I said, "Hey, Kayla, do you want to make more money?" Well, she said, "Of course, Doug, who doesn't want to make more money?" I said, "Well, would you be interested in knowing why you're not making as much money as you could be?" She goes, "Well, sure, tell me." She said, "You've got all these tables of 6. You've got 3 tables of 6, and you've got 3 tables for 4, and then you've got some scattering of some tables for 2. Now, if you look out the door here, you see your average party size is 1 or 2 people. You occasionally get people that come in groups of 4 and 6, but you're much more common to get groups of 2. In fact, it turns out that if you do the math or you do the research, there's more than twice as many parties of 2 that come into the restaurant as parties of 4, more than twice. So I said, what you need to do is pull out some of those tables for 6 and pull out maybe one table for 4 and start stuffing this place for tables for 2. And then I said, if you could, tell me how your revenue does. And she pulled these things out, and the revenue shot up 25% in 2 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Same floor area, different arrangement of seats. So there's some real benefit in figuring out how people react, how people come into your market and buy what it is that you're buying.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a great example. Now, let's say we're looking at an e-commerce brand, and they're just launching a new product. What would how would they understand? How might understanding this hidden market dimension and the market behavior help them, position themselves more effectively, or the particular product that they're coming out with?
Well, first of all, you maybe could give me an example. You're trying to solve for a problem. So, for example, you solve for problems. How do you solve for what it is that you do? You're a clearinghouse for people that are trying to solve their problems. How do you solve for that? What do you do?
As far as, well, for our business, one of the things that as far as trying to solve their problem, we try to, of course, come up. One of the biggest problems is scaling the outreach of affiliates and influencers and being able to manage that effectively. So our problem is, we've had customers in the past where they've had their own kind of informal affiliate or influencer network where they were just generating promo codes and tracking things with spreadsheets, but they get to the point where it's just not feasible because they're dealing with such a quantity of influencers and affiliates. They can't possibly go in and check every single order against that spreadsheet and then figure out, all right, what's the commission that they have to pay out. And so our software solves a problem of being able to scale pretty much exponentially the amount of affiliates, where the software, of course, automatically creates the links and the promo codes, automatically tracks the referred sales, automatically calculates the commission, and determines what's owed to each affiliate. And so that's the biggest, the main problem that it's actually solving. Well,
so when you're going out there looking for affiliates and influencers, there's a certain price to the most expensive influencers. And there's a certain price to some people that are a notch or 2 below in terms of their how many people follow them, and then so on. As you go down the order, there are people that progressively charge less. But if you do the analysis, they may have proportionally more impact. And so it may be the case, say you're pushing the really high-end people, and you're getting them, and they're making their influence, but they're not as productive to you because it costs you or your clients so much to get these people relative to what your revenue is from that, compared to what it would be for somebody that's down a couple of notches. So do you go after a Taylor Swift, or do you go for somebody that's in the cast of a TV show that's got a few 100,000 viewers. I mean, who's got
Yeah.
the best bang for your buck? And this is part of what we try
Mhm.
to figure out is, where are you getting the
Right.
pull from something like this?
Yeah, that makes sense. And a lot of times it's kind of what you said for clients of ours that have our software that are looking for affiliates. The sweet spot that we usually say for them, as far as the influencers are concerned, are going to be micro influencers,
See,
which are people that have anywhere from um, 1,000 to upwards of 20, 50,000
hmm
followers on any of the given networks like Instagram. And so
sure,
that's the sweet spot. But there's a number of factors that they're it's of course obviously a typical e-commerce brand can't approach a Taylor Swift
right,
and try to get her to promote their product. They're she's in the likes of the untouchable category. But
right,
the micro influencers, there's a number of reasons why they're why we tell them that those are going to be ones that are the sweet spots, primarily because they're not only more accessible, but they have a higher level of engagement
sure.
with their audience and their network. That's kind of one of the main things.
Now, one thing that's intuitive, one thing that's impressive to me about what you just said there, Arlen, is you already have an intuitive sense, you do,
Yeah.
of where your best part of the market is. It's the micro influencers, you said, because you get more bang out of that buck. And what's great
Hmm.
about what Hypernomics does is it's just characterizing behaviors that you already know, but it's actually quantifying that characterization. So when you're talking about
Hmm.
micro influencers from say 1,000 to 50,000, well, you could plot all the people you have
Right.
in the 50,000 range. So you got 50, maybe you have 10 people at 50, 20 at 40, 30 at 30, and so on. And you get down to
Hmm.
the people that are in the thousands, and maybe you have 1,000 people at 1,000. You could work
Yeah.
out how much you're paying to these people relative to what you're getting, and then this could help you position yourself into the sweeter spot of the market, the sweetest spot of the market, because you're making money
Yeah.
all along. Just like, well, where should I
Right.
spend most of my time? I mean, one of the great problems of
Exactly.
being a human is, where do I spend my time? I mean, you and I are talking right now. This is great. I'm enjoying it. What are we going to do
Right.
after you get out of here? Where's the best use of your time after you get out? Where's the best use of
Exactly.
my time? I got to figure that out. And your clients want to know that
Hmm.
too. And that's part of what
Yes.
Hypernomics does for people is it figures out the best place for somebody to push their products.
Yeah, and that's really the main thing. Speaking of best use of time, I was reading the notes that were sent over as part of your
Mm-hmm.
bio, and I saw that you faced early in your career, you faced some serious health
Oh yeah.
challenges. I think back in 2002, I read that one of your best friends actually gave his kidney to you because of the health
Mm-hmm.
issues that you were facing at that time. And so I just I was just curious about how did those health struggles kind of shape your perspective on consumer behavior and how that is influenced or how that influences decision making.
Well, yeah, Arlen, I found out when I took a physical at 17 and flunked it. They told me
Mm.
my kidney wasn't working right, and so
Wow.
I'm an old guy now. So I was actually 17. I was, this was 1972, and
Okay.
one of my best friends had another friend whose his brother was a baseball player, and a guy named Cap Peterson. He played in the same outfield for the San Francisco Giants with Willie Mays and Willie McCovey. And
Oh
he
wow.
had kidney disease, and he died. Kidney disease back in the 70s was,
Mhm.
pretty often a death sentence. So when I got this
Wow.
diagnosis, I got, just being young and stupid, just I knew that I knew if you sweat, that's part of the excretory system. So I said, you know what?
Right.
I'm going to start running. I did the Forrest Gump thing. I started running.
Okay.
I
Got
got up
you.
to the point where I
Got
was
you.
running 50 and 60 miles a week and working out all the time to
Oh
fight this
wow.
thing off. But
Okay.
what happened was
Got you.
was my body function started to go, my brain function started to go down for since 17 all the way up to 38. And then I finally got on dialysis and I
Mhm.
got one kidney and it didn't
Okay.
work right. And then Tim gave me
Okay.
this kidney. And what they tell you when they give you the kidney, you're on the table, your skin
Mhm.
is kind of ashen gray. And if you're,
Okay.
and in my case, what happens as soon as they give you the kidney, that gray goes away and your natural skin tone just pops out.
Oh, wow.
And so I woke up,
Okay.
you know, I don't know, hours afterwards, and there's this big bucket of, you know, it looked like black tea was pouring out of me because all the poison that was inside of me is being flushed out. And all of a sudden I just woke up and I said, I'm not the same guy I was yesterday. You're going downhill for, in this case, for 3 decades. And all of a sudden, bam.
Oh, wow.
You're up at the top. And so, you know, most discoveries in math and science are made by young people. And here I made all these discoveries when I hit 50 and 60. Basically, because my brain wasn't working right when I was younger. So, you know, it allowed me to see,
So,
in all this time that I'm getting, you know, all this stuff's happening to me, I'm observing the world. And that, you know, this thing's kind of in the background, like, well, why won't the law of supply and demand work for cars? You know, they claim that there's one equilibrium point. There's hundreds of car miles. And so this whole idea of what the consumers were doing was percolating in my head for decades. And then all of a sudden I get this kidney and then bam, it hits. And
wow.
So there was like
it's almost like it's almost like a reset or almost like a rebirth, if you will.
I didn't like Corona beer before that. My friend Tim drinks Corona. All of a sudden I like it. So
okay.
And my kidney is now 22 years old, so it can drink. So you know.
Okay. Well, that's definitely an advantage there for sure. Okay. Well, yeah, interesting. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's definitely quite a story and quite a journey. And you know, as far as everything is advancing so rapidly across, you know, technology and e-commerce, with, of course, AI that's changing so much these days, no matter kind of what you're involved in. How do you envision Hypernomics evolving in the future, as far as, you know, what would be some new possibilities that it may unlock for online retailers, you know, in the next 5 years?
Yeah, we started out, as I said, looking in 4 dimensions. And then I just gave a paper that we actually built a solid model that was built in 7 dimensions. And it showed like how the market for aircraft works in conjunction with the engines that go into it. And we think we're going to keep trying to drill this thing down so that you can actually build up anything with all the detailed data in it about what things are worth and what they cost, so you can optimize anything that you're doing. And we think we can do that in virtually any market for which you can get the data. And so we're adding AI in to try to figure out how to shade. Like we also use this for buying stocks. And so one of the things we're going to do in buying stocks is we look at all the financial metrics around something like this. And you get all done with that, and you can look up a sentiment index on any of your trading platforms like Schwab and everybody else. They have this sentiment that goes for the stock, but then you can get something like ChatGPT-4 to tell you, well, what do you think about these 4 stocks? And we're going to start to push that data on top of the solid financial data that we have, so that you can try to cast things in different directions based on everything that you can find out about somebody or something.
Yeah. Powerful stuff. I think that's really the key there with the ChatGPT, being able to analyze data on a more broader exponential level in a shorter amount of time. And that's, I think, really gonna change the game. And the thing with it, which is always amazing to me, especially, you know, with marketing, it's also, because I've had other people on the podcast that have created tools where they're able to, you know, on the fly adjust marketing messaging, also able to adjust website content based on, you know, the funnel somebody's come through, based on their specific persona that it's created. And all of that is really, it just seems like you were never able to do something like this, you know, in the past.
Well, I know. I mean, ChatGPT is changing the world. All the AI is changing the world right now. It's really a pretty amazing time to be alive. So,
for sure. Well, Doug, this has been an awesome conversation. I've definitely learned a lot. I'm definitely going to dig deeper in it and consider getting your book as well. I've always also recommend everyone to look you up on on
Yeah.
Amazon. I will have actually the link in our show
Great,
notes as
thanks.
well. So this has been a great conversation, but I always like to shift gears
Sure.
here for my last question before we close things out. If you don't mind sharing one closing fun fact about yourself that you think we'd be interested to know.
One fun fact about myself. Well, I think I'm there's a lot of people that can run it's saying I used to run a lot. There's a lot of people that can run a half marathon in an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And there's a lot of people that can deadlift 500 pounds. And those are two usually opposing sets of skills. I managed to do both of them in my lifetime. So trying to keep myself alive.
Okay.
So when I was trying to keep myself alive, I got way into it and was trying to keep myself alive.
That's definitely way into it. Being able to deadlift 500 pounds and run a half marathon in an hour and a half. That's
126.04.
That's impressive.
So
wow. That's definitely a high athletic level for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Lastly, before we do let you go, if our listeners and viewers want to reach out to you and pick your brain anymore about Hypernomics or kind of anything under that sun, what would be the best way for them to reach?
Well, you can reach me on my personal website, doughowarth.com. You could get more data if you went to our company website, which is hypernomics.com, and you can leave messages there at info@hypernomics.com. But we have lots of LinkedIn posts. We cover everything from the value of an NFL receiver if he gets faster to COVID to stocks. And then we came out of aviation. So we have quite a bit of stuff we talk about in aviation. So there's a lot of interesting stuff there that if you get, like somebody said, they looking at my site, you can kind of go down the rabbit hole. There's a whole bunch of different ways to look at data that we've discovered. And we find it pretty interesting. And we hope our readers and viewers will too. So, yeah.
Okay. That sounds awesome. Well, I'll definitely encourage people to check out the site and check you out as well. We'll have those links in the show notes. Great. And it's definitely been an awesome conversation, Doug. We really appreciate having you on the e-commerce marketing podcast.
Well, Arlen, thank you so much. As I said, it's a great podcast. I'm glad to be part of it. So thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the e-commerce marketing podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share it with everyone you know. Are you looking to take your digital marketing to the next level but are tired of weeding through countless YouTube videos with unproven and untrusted marketing strategies? Well, we have the answer for you. The More Sales Every Month online digital marketing course. In this information-packed course, you will learn effective keyword research, link building, content marketing, and much more to attract and convert your site visitors into paying customers. Just go to moresaleseverymonth.com and sign up today for a low one-time fee. In addition to this power-packed course, if you would like to get access to a growing repository of digital marketing articles, PDFs, and ebooks, check out getosi.com/resources and opt in to get full access to our library of priceless marketing information to help you take your digital marketing to the next level.